What's going on, guys? Isaiah or /Video24 here. Today, bringing you the first of many guides and tutorials in Shadow of the Colossus, which is an older game, but it's one of the free games of the month this month for PS Plus. So I'm going to be bringing you a bunch of different guides and walkthroughs in this game. Starting out with today's video, the first 3 Colossi. I'm going to be doing a video on all 16 bosses in the game on the hard mode difficulty, and I'm going to sort of break it up so it's not all in one video. I'm going to be doing 3 bosses per video over the course of this week. So with our first video here, we have the first 3 Colossi, like I said. Starting out here with our first Colossus named Valus. This Colossus is the easiest Colossus in the game, which kind of makes sense as it's the first one. What you're going to want to do for this first Colossus on hard mode is climb up onto the left leg. There's going to be a little bit of a weak spot here. After you hit that weak spot with a quick stab, you're then just going to kind of work your way up the Colossus onto its back. And then from there, there's a bunch of little platforms that you're going to use to get up onto its head. I should say that the majority of Colossi in Shadow of the Colossus are very similar on both the normal and hard difficulties, but there are a few that have an additional weak spot on the hard difficulty. This particular first Colossus is one of those types of Colossus. It has the weak spot on its head, but then also for the hard mode, it has a weak spot on the back of its right arm, as you can kind of see there. But you're going to want to save that weak spot for last, as there isn't really a chance to recover stamina for that weak spot. Basically, just work your way up the back, go over to its head, then you're just going to get a bunch of different stabs in and do the majority of your damage on that head weak spot. This Colossus, like I said, is sort of the tutorial Colossus of the game, just to introduce you to some of the different mechanics. If you're not familiar with this game, basically what it is, it's kind of like a little bit of an open world adventure game where you have to go through this sort of faraway land and defeat 16 Colossi, or different sort of unique bosses. And then by doing so, you then complete this sort of quest you've been assigned on. And yeah, once you finish off that head weak spot, you're going to then move back towards the lower part of the Colossus. Then jump on over to the right arm. Like I said, there isn't really a bunch of, or much of an opportunity to recover stamina for this Colossus, so you're going to want to make sure you save this one for the end. But once you're on the arm, it's pretty straightforward. You have more than enough time to do enough damage before your grip meter or your stamina meter runs out. You'll be hearing me say that a lot over the course of these videos. But yeah, the Colossus will have a little bit of an attempt to throw you off, but for this first Colossus, it's pretty straightforward. There isn't much of a platforming or much of a skill jump that you'll need to do for this first Colossus. And we have now 1 Colossus down and 15 more to go. Moving on here to our second Colossus, the Mammoth. This Colossus, similar to the first Colossus, is pretty easy, pretty straightforward. But again, introducing you to some of the different mechanics that you'll need to utilize over the course of this game. I should say that this is an earlier game. It was actually remade for PS4 back in 2018, but I'm really glad to see that it's a free game this month for PS Plus. If you haven't added it to your library yet, definitely be sure to do so. What you're going to want to do for our second Colossus here, Quadratus, is, as you saw there, shoot out one of its feet as it sort of lifts it up into the air. Doing that will make the Colossus drop down onto one leg. And on hard mode, you want to specifically target that upper, or forward left leg, I should say, as on hard mode there is an additional weak spot on the left side of its body. And so shooting down that left side of either leg will allow you to get right up close to that left side weak spot. So once you're on there, going after that left side weak spot, it only takes a few hits. There is also an additional weak spot for this boss, which is the same as with the normal mode, on both the far back of the Colossus and on its head. You're going to see the head is a common theme. What you're going to see me do here for this left side weak spot, though, is since you have sort of a very reduced amount of stamina and grip for the first handful of Colossi, you're going to want to definitely play it safe. Each of the Colossi has a goal time, as you see there in the top right corner. And thankfully, though, most of the goal times are very doable, even by playing it super conservatively with your attacks and with your stamina. You don't have to really rush on only really 1 or 2 of the Colossi over the course of the entire 16. You have to sort of do things a little bit more quickly to reach that goal time. What you actually get for completing the hard mode time attacks is every 2 that you complete, you get an item that you'll be able to use in the actual normal playthrough of the game. But for the purpose of the time attacks, most of them, like I said, are super straightforward, and as long as you sort of know the mechanics of each boss, you aren't going to really be under a huge time crunch. So as you saw there, I played it conservatively. I went back to the ledge, recovered some stamina, and then went back off to finish the left side weak point. Then just work your way down to the back of the Colossus and finish off that second weak point. And then from there, still a couple minutes to spare. What you're going to want to do is then recover your stamina once again, and then you need to work your way to the head of the Colossus, which you can basically just do by jumping over its sort of back here. Has a bunch of bones and other things going on the back here made out of rock. So you just kind of need to parkour your way across its spine, and then make your way up into its head. The first and second Colossus, like I said, well, Colossi, I should say, are very straightforward. As we get into sort of the later half of the Colossi, those specific bosses are a lot more difficult and a lot more time-consuming. So I'm just kind of keeping things simple and clear here on the first 3 Colossi, as those are definitely some of the more easier ones relative to the other bosses. But from there, just work your way onto the Colossus's head, and then getting a few stabs, and it's pretty straightforward. This second Colossus doesn't really do a lot to try and throw you off of its body. Just kind of takes the beating, and that's pretty much it. So just getting in our last couple attacks here. As you can see, still a minute to spare, even with me sort of playing it conservatively on the left side weak point. That is our second Colossus down, and we'll have one more for this video. Alright guys, now moving into our third Colossus, which is the Knight, also known as Gaius. The trophy is called Wake the Knight. This Colossus might give you a bit of trouble for the time attack mode. You have 6 minutes to beat this one, 6 minutes and 30 seconds I should say. But what you're going to have to do for this Colossus to skip some time is one of the more difficult time skips, or one of the more difficult maneuvers in the entire game. At the start, you're going to want to bait in the Colossus into using his sword, and then from there, you're going to just want to sit on his sword and wait. Normally, for this Colossus, you have to make it attack a metal plate so that its wrist guard breaks. But in order to save a bunch of time and to make the time attack mode be a lot safer and a lot easier, you're going to just sit on his sword, and he'll eventually do a little move, as you saw there, where he lowers his sword, and if you time a jump at the exact correct moment, you can jump over his wrist guard, and then save just a bunch of time with that. Normally, breaking the wrist guard is going to take you like at least a couple minutes out of your 6 minutes and 30 seconds. But as you see, by doing that little time skip, you're able to save a bunch of time. For hard mode, this specific Colossus has 3 weak points. The first of which here on its stomach or midsection. So after you jump over the wrist guard, that one might take you a few tries, but after you're able to successfully jump over that wrist guard, you're gonna go over here to its stomach, like I said, take out the weak point with a few solid sword attacks. This Colossus definitely is a little bit more difficult, like I said, than the last 2. And he's also going to try to throw you off quite a fair bit. He's going to be moving around a whole bunch. But as long as you are able to sort of nail that wrist guard or sword time skip, it makes the rest of the fight a lot more straightforward, since you just have way more time to work with. As you can see there, I was running low on stamina, so just play it really conservatively. Jump off whenever you need to. Use your R2 or your grip to sort of crouch when you're standing on a flat surface to recover your stamina. And then, yeah, take out that first weak point on its stomach. The remaining 2 weak points are one on its head and one on the left side of its body, sort of on its like left arm. You're gonna want to save the left arm for the end and go for its head second up. After you take out the stomach weak point, you're gonna then jump back from its sort of ledge there on its back onto the wrist guard once again, and then you're gonna climb up the Colossus going this way, up its right arm, and then back onto its head. There also is a separate trophy for beating this Colossus without breaking its wrist guard. So if you're able to use this time skip for the hard mode time attack, you will also get a nice little bonus trophy there. But this move that I showed you there at the start is one of the more difficult moves in the entire game in terms of saving time. But I had to look up a bunch of different guides for it in particular, but I found that the easiest way was just to sort of sit on the sword and then do a little jump over its wrist guard when the timing is right. There is a way you can actually make it so that the sword will fling you up onto the upper body of the Colossus. But in my opinion, after trying that for quite some time, it's a lot more straightforward to just sort of go for the easier time skip and jump over its wrist guard. And then from there, you have a ton of time to take out the rest of the Colossus under that 6 minutes and 30-second goal. So as you'll see here, as I've been rambling on, work your way up to the head of the Colossus and then start putting in some damage. He's going to do a lot of little moves here, as you can see, where he tries to buck you off its head by shaking it around a lot. Due to the fact that you don't have a ton of stamina for these first few fights, you're going to want to play it conservatively. If you need to recover some stamina, just get off of the Colossus's head, just rest on its shoulder. You'll be able to recover your full stamina meter with that. And then after that, after you have full stamina, once again, you can just go back to the head of the Colossus, get in as much more hits as you need, and then end the fight from there. As you can see, still a couple minutes remaining, so still well under the goal time. But the reason you want to save that third and final weak point for the end is then you don't have to be hanging onto that one for an extended period of time. And like I said, with the third and final weak point, there isn't really much of a spot to recover your stamina. So you're going to want to make sure you recover your stamina ahead of time. Make sure you have full stamina going into that final weak point. The weak point is on its left arm towards the back. So you kind of have to like scale your way down a bit and parkour on down there. But once you do, it's pretty straightforward. Definitely there are these first few fights I should say are a lot shorter than some of the later Colossi. And as we progress throughout this week, I'm going to be doing all 16 boss fights in the game. So be sure to stay tuned every day for a brand new Shadow of the Colossus video. And that wraps up this third Colossus and the final one of today's guide. That is the first 3 Colossi in Shadow of the Colossus, one of the free games of the month for PS Plus for this month, March 2020. I hope you guys enjoyed today's guide. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe. Stay tuned for plenty more Shadow of the Colossus content coming over the course of this entire week. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, guys, I'll see you soon.